Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Live Since You Asked. Back in summer mode, and rather than being in an office, kind of outside and a little bit more relaxed. Thanks to John Frates, class of '76, and Andrew Frates, class of 2006, for joining us this afternoon. How are you, John? How are you, Andrew?
Good, thanks. Yeah, we're awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks
we really appreciate you guys. Appreciate you both being with us today and taking some time to answer some questions. And what we'll do is I'll throw a couple questions out to you, and then over time, everyone who's listening has the opportunity to ask questions of Andrew and John as well. Feel free to use the questions tab. If you're on a iPad or smartphone, you can just hit the question mark, or if you're on a desktop, you can hit the questions tab and submit your question, and we'll get it to them. First off, you guys have done some, experienced a really significant and challenging loss this year, and I hope you both know that the prep community has been with you and supports you, and you've continued to be in our prayers and thoughts. If you think back to kind of the early days of when Pete was first diagnosed, John, you and I had a conversation with Pete right outside my office. How did things go from Pete's diagnosis to all of a sudden the Frates family and Pete became the face of ALS Research and what was happening for you guys behind the scenes, if that makes sense?
It sure does. Pete was a leader, as you know. He told us immediately that we have to strap it on, get to work, put our work boots on. He was a locker room guy, used all that type of language. And he said, we have to get after this thing. Well, we thought about our talents and our skill set. I'm too old to go back to medical school. We thought about doing a little bit of political stuff, and we knew and we're connected politically. But when we did some of that, it just didn't feel right. It felt like we were just, going against the wind or the current. But what we could do is we could raise awareness and through our networking and connections. And Pete used to tell me all the time, whenever we watched a ball game right here, hey, I know that guy. I played against that guy. And I'm like, that's absolute craziness. At the time Obama was a president, he's going to call me any minute, Pete, so stop saying this stuff. Well, sure enough, he did know all these people. He was that connected, and awareness of anything, marketing, networking, is really the key for getting, no pun intended, all the heights and the awareness that Pete achieved on this mission.
Yeah, I think to echo what my dad said, and Pete set the vision that first night he was diagnosed. He sat us down at the table and said, we're getting to work. And he actually, something very profound, said, I want to get this in front of philanthropists like Bill Gates. And this was March of 2012. Well, you fast forward to August of 2014, and we were banging our heads against the walls, trying to raise $5,000 here, $10,000 there. And then the Ice Bucket Challenge came. And that's when Bill Gates, one of our favorite Ice Bucket Challenge, he did his video, and we just leveraged all those connections that Pete had, that my dad just spoke about, of the professional athletes, the Brian Boyle NHL players, the Matt Ryans, the NFL players in those world. And so we leveraged all those connections to make the Ice Bucket Challenge get to the Bill Gates of the world.
And it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's been a privilege to kind of be connected to you guys and see the amazing things that you've done, and kind of see a little bit behind the scenes. And just chatting with both of you and Nancy as well, I know that there were some, it's an obvious understatement, but some really hard times and some challenges in the midst of your journey. One of the things we talk with our students a lot about is resilience and persevering. Can you guys talk a little bit about what, in those moments when things were hard, when things were challenging, what inspired you to keep going? And when you felt as if you were getting knocked down, what inspired you to get back up again and continue moving? And even now, Pete passed away in December, and you're continuing to carry on the good work that you all started.
Yeah, it's such a great point. The highs of the highs that we just spoke about, getting the Ice Bucket Challenge in front of the NFL players and the Bill Gates of the world, but there are some lows of lows, and that was ultimately this past December was the lowest point for us. But we go back to those sayings that Pete set the vision for us. He always told me, you can do whatever you set your mind to. He had all these sayings, and keep on Keep On Truckin' was one of them. I think that's from a, you know, rock song that he liked. But and then the other one was Body Fuels the Mind. So just some of those inspirational quotes and inspirational sayings that Pete kind of instilled in me from a young age and from our days at St. John's. He was a senior when I was a freshman, so you know, he had to, he didn't give me any swirlies, but he instilled in me some leadership and great qualities, the varying qualities. So we just remember the highs when we were going through the lows, because you're not always going to be as low as you once were, and you're not always going to be as high as you were as well.
I think, you know, Pete really was our inspiration behind this whole thing, because he was really a larger than life figure, and he honestly, I had felt that I had turned over the keys to the family to him. He was doing a lot of things that I normally took more of a leadership role, and now Andrew is doing it. He's in charge of my life now, he told me. But I remember the first time we went to the Y to see my niece in the pool, and then Julie, his then girlfriend, was working upstairs. Well, Pete had just gone into a manual wheelchair, and we were rolling it down the hallway, and I didn't even know the Y had an elevator down here. And out comes a neighbor that just kind of bumped into us, and he was stunned, and I was kind of shocked that this was all happening and unfolding right here with, you know, this big, strong specimen in a wheelchair, and the old man pulling him up inside to go upstairs. Well, he says, "Oh, how are you guys doing?" And he was clearly rattled. And I said, "Chuck, we're doing the best we can." And as soon as the elevator door shut and that guy moved on, Pete turned to me and said, "You tell that, you always say we're great, no matter what, we are always great." So that became our mission. We, no matter what was going on behind the scenes, we had to just flush the memory banks and just put a best face forward.
I think the power of positivity and the power of a positive mindset is two keys and two morals of the stories that we just told.
Yeah, no, it really resonates with a lot of what we're trying to teach our students too, of this kind of concept of growth mindset, of kind of even when things are challenging, you know, and when you fail or things don't go your way, you learn from that and you adjust and you kind of recalibrate and move forward. I think you guys have been a phenomenal model of recalibrating, at least from what I've observed. And I know it's been hard as a brother and a dad to go through this journey, but it's been amazing to watch how you've been, you know, just kind of continually adjusting to the different challenges that have been thrown your way. You're both prep grads. Pete was a prep grad, and John, you've always talked about the three-legged stool of the city of Beverly, St. John's Prep, and Boston College. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, how St. John's Prep, your experience as students, the experience of the prep network, the experience of brotherhood, how Pete experienced that and then how that has helped you kind of advance awareness for ALS moving forward, and how you've connected to that network?
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I do thank you for seeing us that very first time that we came back to the campus, because I noticed that Pete would have an energy once he set foot on the campus, and that day outside your office, he wanted to tell you personally. That's the respect he had for you, and Jim O'Leary, his favorite coach. I don't know why he was his favorite coach, but anyway.
I can't figure that out either, but that's a different story for a different time.
That's right. But when I was there in the the early to mid 70s, there was so much turmoil in the country over the Vietnam War, not unlike today, what's happening with the Black Lives Matter movement. And the prep was really floundering, and there was a lot of things going on. So yes, I got a tremendous education. Yes, I met so many wonderful people and mentors in my life. But when I see the transformation that has occurred at the prep, and the fact that these two guys got the ultimate, the pinnacle of education, but back then there was a little bit of resistance to authority, and I don't think I did embrace it fully. Whereas Pete and Andrew, they drank it from a fire hose. They loved the mantra, they loved the philosophy, they loved the discipline and the structure, and they flourished. And that's what I noticed the biggest difference. To this day, my prep friends are some of my greatest friends in this world. I'm on a text chain message with these guys constantly. We meet up socially all the time, breakfast and dinners and restaurant events, which will be coming back soon. But the other great thing about Pete's class is they include us, meaning Andrew and I, all the time in everything they're doing. In fact, we just had a great Zoom call with those guys the other night, just to touch base, see what's happening. I feel like I'm so privileged to have not only my friends, my class, my experience, but to share it with my two boys the way I was able to do. It was just remarkable. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I think it, you know, to echo what Johnny said again, it transcends generations even. You know, he has all his friends, Pete has all his friends, I have all my friends, and I know the class of 2020 pretty well, and I know that they have a great group of friends as well. So we feel our heart goes out to the class of 2020 that they can't have the senior spring that they want. They don't get to have prom and, you know, a run at the state tournament and all that stuff that comes with that last, you know, senior spring. But to your point earlier, you know, resiliency and growth mindset, what's the next opportunity that's going to come for those guys?
No, it's true. When you guys think about it, you know, if you were to be around in 100 years and you were to read about the ice bucket challenge and the story of Pete Frates, what do you hope people capture from not just Pete's story, but the Frates family story as to kind of how you handled this? What's the lasting lesson that you hope everybody takes from what you've done and what you continue to do?
Yeah, it's a story of a life well led and a family full of love. We hope that, you know, we built all these relationships, and Pete built all these relationships with all of his friends across the country and across the globe. Even he played a summer in Germany one year, a summer of baseball in Germany. So it's really just a life well led and a family built on love. So that's why the Ice Bucket Challenge flourished, is because of all those connections and all those relationships. Pete never burnt a bridge. He and I hope I haven't. I think he has a few, but
my gasoline.
You know, it's just it's a family built of love and a testament to my parents.
Well, thanks. That's something nice. I'll have to timestamp that one. But
it's all being recorded, John. You can play it back later.
So, you know, I alluded to the fact that Pete has lived a life that was transcendent, I felt. I think he knew, he has said many times that he didn't think the cure or the treatment would be in time for him, but he was going to do everything humanly possible and then some to bring awareness to this disease, because it was a simple act of awareness leads to funding, to research, to the treatment and the cure. So when that day does come, and it will come, you know, Pete has to be considered to be one of the greatest humans to sacrifice himself for the goodness of others. And that's the way he lived his life. And I know he will be recognized in the future for that. Now, what we did, honestly, is we listened to our leader. We wanted to make sure that we kept his wishes going, and we did everything that we possibly could to make this journey as exciting as possible in the face of a devastating illness.
Yeah, I think one thing about Pete is that he truly turned his visions into reality. So he, you know, John and Nancy, they both went to BC. So Pete, there's a picture floating around online of Pete in a full jumpsuit and when he's just an infant in BC, sweatshirt and sweatpants. And he wanted to go to BC since the day he was born. But not only go to BC, he also wanted to play a sport there. And as we all know, BC is one of the most competitive schools athletically and academically. And for him to achieve that goal and achieve the goal of getting ALS in front of the philanthropists like Bill Gates is you know, truly a visionary.
Sure. Earlier this year, you know, Nancy spoke for, or was going to speak, I had the chance to speak to our student athletes. We, one of the speakers that were part of the Coach O'Brien, the O'Brien Family Series, challenged our students to use their platform as a way to kind of advance good. And you know, Pete did it. You know, Andrew, you left everything when you heard about Pete's diagnosis and came home to help take care of your brother. John, you and Nancy stopped everything to help take care of your son. There's high school students out there, there's young alums. How would you encourage them to use their platform to do good in the world? I mean, John, you alluded there's a lot going on in the world right now with racial issues. Obviously, there's the continued need to advocate for ALS. But what would you say to that young alum or that current prep student who's on the edge of kind of using his platform, but for whatever reason nervous about taking the leap? How would you encourage him or someone else in his family?
Yeah, I think one thing that, when the ice bucket came around, similar to today's environment, everyone was posting on their social media channels, which is amazing as is. But you really got to take the time and the effort to invest in that cause. And that's what Pete asked everyone who was doing an ice bucket challenge, to educate themselves and to donate either their time or their money to the cause as well. So, if there's something to be done, and I'm sure there's tons of protests in their town, and you can call your senators and your congressmen from the cities. So really, not only using your platform, but taking time and effort to really forward the mission of the cause.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I was a salesman my whole life. Did I ever feel that passionate and emotionally attached to the product or service that I was selling? I don't think so. But when it's your own son and you have to immerse yourself in something that is that critical, that crucial, I've met so many people along the journey, and there's no judgment. Some people just want to withdraw. Some people want to go out there and present themselves. It's either way, but find out what that passion is, what is that motivation, what is that drive. And if I had to go back in time, I would do something that I really was truly passionate about. And Andrew got me off a ladder a little bit ago to get in the shower, and I was passionate about painting the house today, but he wanted to make sure I was here with him.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, well, that's a different story for a different day about the ladder. But yeah, I think, the passion is awesome. I've always wanted to work in athletics professionally, and working with our family and treating Pete as an athlete kind of set me up for my career now, where I do work for athletic apparel company and ASICS, and my time working with athletes and has really set me up for success at my current job.
Sure. One of our students reached out and asked, as a current SJP student, how can I get involved to help make an impact and support your work for ALS? So I'm sure there's others that share there, but what way can you direct our students to support the good things that are going on right now?
Well, it's great timing because I'm looking for an intern for the Peter Frates Family Foundation. But no, otherwise, we have tons of events going on. Right now, we're kind of revamping the organization as the passing of my brother and his son in December. We are in terms of revamping and looking at what events that we go on, but definitely always volunteer, sign up for our newsletter, sign up for the ALS Association newsletter. They make it really simple now to just email the congressman and send a phone call to the senators and whatnot to pass, a bill for right to try, for example, and other stuff that is going on in the ALS community.
But just like what Pete accomplished through the Ice Bucket Challenge, is no one ever has to look up the 3 letters of ALS ever again. Everyone knows what it is. Everyone knows how debilitating this thing is and how terminal it is. So to me, having Pete go through St. John's Prep, Andrew, myself, of course, but Pete especially, being connected to the prep in every way means that this generation, this 2020 grad, is going to always carry forward the connection to Pete and his mission, which was raise awareness and funding for ALS. So I'm convinced that in my lifetime this thing will be resolved through the help of all these great people, especially our prep brethren.
And as you look at what's happening right now in the world of ALS research, what excites you about what's happening in the world of ALS research right now, as you've kind of kept up to date with what's happening in different areas?
Yeah, great timing on that, as well as this morning, the ALS Association announced a $500,000 donation to an organization called Brainstorm, and they're working with stem cells to try to figure it out. It's not quite at the breakthrough that my father and I want, but since the Ice Bucket Challenge, there have been many advances in the research. It kind of goes over our heads as we're not scientists and medical professionals, but there have been many advancements, but as my dad said, in our lifetime, we will see a cure, and we are hoping for a breakthrough soon.
I think this situation with COVID is very similar to the situation that we felt with ALS. We felt the desperation, the fear, the anxiety, but we always held out hope. And I think the whole world is feeling the pandemic and those same exact feelings, but they know that there's hope. They know there's going to be a vaccine eventually, and we can all get back to normal. Wouldn't that be great if we could fast forward everything like that for ALS?
Right. No, that'd be great on both fronts, if we can kind of get back to some normalcy in any ways. We've also talked a lot of our students about finding mentors, about people who can kind of support them. As you look at your journey, are there people out there that have been mentors for Pete that were really helpful, people that have been mentors for each of you individually, or for your family in general, that you can talk about how they inspired you or encouraged you?
Sure. For Pete, I watched him after that diagnosis, and by the way, he knew what he had. That fall of 2011, he was on the internet, he was on WebMD, he knew all of his symptoms, and he had 10 out of the 12 that keep pointing to ALS. And he never wanted to tell us because he didn't want to break our hearts. But regardless, he went in from that formal day of diagnosis into my little office over here and made personal phone calls to every single coach that he ever had and every single player, because he wanted them to hear from him what he had, not just a rumor or an innuendo. So those are the people who really shaped his life. I looked at all his philosophies that he carried through, and I was amazed that he took all of these ideas and, but I could never explain why he had Republican leanings, but that's just...
Oh boy. I'll pick it up
another
here.
Story for another time.
Yeah, exactly. To my father's point, Pete went on the internet and he found Steve Gleason, who was diagnosed about 2 years prior to Pete, maybe a year prior, and he was making big waves. He's a former NFL player. He blocked the kick when New Orleans played Atlanta on that Monday night, the first game back in the Superdome. It's a iconic moment in sports, and after Hurricane Katrina back in 2006. Anyways, Steve Gleason was a mentor for Pete from the ALS standpoint. As my dad mentioned, a lot of coaches were mentors for Pete. For me personally, Pete was a huge mentor for me. Unfortunately, I lost my main mentor, my main role model back in December, but this guy right here has been pretty good, and Ed, yourself as well. You've been a great mentor to me, so thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate that. And again, this is recorded, so I'm going to use that against you at some point in time. So, what advice would you guys give to the class of 2020 and to current prep students? I mean, there's a lot of voices out there. You all have done some amazing work and really, in many ways, lived what we hope people live, the lives that people live as prep grads. What advice would you give to that prep student who's maybe a rising sophomore who's trying to figure it all out, or a senior, as you mentioned, Andrew, who missed out on all of graduation and jumping into college? What's the wisdom that you can share?
Well, to me, I always go back to the fundamentals that literally the nuns, then the brothers, and then the priests. So that was my 16 years of Catholic education. And I think about, it was just drummed in what the guide path, the flight path should be. But there's no shortcuts in this world, and especially with a guy that I watched like my son Pete. Now, I never had that sports capability that these two guys had, but Pete never took a shortcut. He always was the first one in the gym, last one out of the gym. He did everything the right way, and he started with his clothing, believe it or not, his uniform. He had to put things on just right. He had to look just right, because if he wasn't presented the right way, and if he was going to half bake it, or whatever the right word is,
Yeah.
then it wasn't going to be a full effort, and he was going to be cheating not just everyone else but himself. And he had such a incredible rudder, and I'm so proud of him and Andrew.
Yeah, I think to expand on that too is the power of routine and the power of habit. And obviously right now is very challenging times to kind of get into that routine, because usually you get up. I remember getting up at 6:30, 6 o'clock, putting on khakis, putting on your boat shoes, going to school, right? And that's the routine. Going to practice afterwards, coming home and doing homework. But our challenge to the current students and the young alums is to kind of find that routine that works for you right now, and then grow in that routine afterwards when we do get back to some sort of normalcy.
And Andrew, this question's for you in case there's some rising seniors out there. PLI, should I give up some time in my summer to be a part of PLI, even if it's going to be maybe on campus and a little more remote than overnight? Is PLI worth it?
Yeah, 100%. I think one of my favorite things about PLI is it truly connects you to the entire grade. So as a athlete, I didn't really get to converse much with the guys who are in the AP classes and the guys who did the drama as much as I would have liked to. And PLI it fully immerses you with your class, and not just the guys you normally hang out with, but the guys who are in those other kind of extracurricular activities that you don't normally spend time in.
But Ed, if Pete didn't go to PLI and we didn't find the writing downstairs from that journal that he took in junior year, and Nancy didn't discover that phrase that he has used, his mantra, his affirmation that we quote all the time, then this would not have been. So it was I noticed a huge difference in his confidence and his leadership skills and everything once he came out of PLI.
And Ed, you like to let your hair down a little bit at PLI too, so maybe
I don't have much more anymore, so it's we'll see how it all goes.
Touchy subject. Yeah. All right, sorry.
Yeah, you're just talking about the glowing runways up there. Every August until a cure, continue with the ice bucket challenge, or do we look for other things to do? What's the word from the founding family?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I'm very close with Pat Quinn Sr., and that's how I keep communicating with Pat, who was Pete was the mentor to Pat, and Pat is the one who tagged Pete, so they're forever linked for the ice bucket challenge. And he tells me that Pat now wants to do a handlebar mustache challenge. So I listened to that one for a little bit, and I'm like, oh boy. So maybe I'll have to stick something on. But I think it'll always be a wonderful part of Pete's legacy, and it's remarkable what it did, not only for the cure or for the cause, but also for philanthropy in general. Nothing can ever touch the remarkable success, $225 million globally in 6 weeks of raising money, and then they just stop counting. So every now and again, we'll get a call that people want to host an ice bucket challenge, and we're all happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you both for being a part of this conversation. Your family was one of the, as I've shared a few times, was one of the first prep families that my family met way back when, and
that's right.
Invited us right in, and have really, it's been a privilege and an honor to get to know you and to journey with you from a distant standpoint over time. And John, good segue from the PLI conversation. When I think of Pete's mantra and Pete's credo, you, Andrew, Nancy, Jen, your family live that on a day-to-day basis, and I can only imagine kind of the sadness at the loss, but I hope you both understand and know the way that you have impacted others. And I assure you that in my time as headmaster, and since Nancy has said I can't retire, I guess I'm there for a lot longer. I will make sure that everyone who walks across that stage at St. John's Prep at commencement knows the story of Pete Frates, is inspired by the story of Pete Frates, and comes to commit himself to use his platform to make the world a better place. So we're going to carry that legacy. We're not going to be afraid to be great. And thank you for not being afraid to be great as well. It's really been a privilege to talk with both of you.
Well, Doc, thank you for everything that you continue to do for us, have done for us, especially that tremendous service that you did for Pete, and the awareness that you continue to spread, because the connection with every one of your students who are connected to family, it just jumps from there and keeps that message and that hope alive. So we're thrilled to be a part of this. Please, whatever we can do to help.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. And yeah, it's been great getting to know your family as well, Cara and the kids. And I hope Eddie's having fun down at Salve and everything. So we're a true St. John's Prep family, and you should have had Nancy on, really, because she can sell the school way better than we can. So
we got other plans for her down the road. But
awesome.
Appreciate your time for both of you, and take care. Peace.
All right, thanks, man.
Thanks. Take care. Thanks everybody for listening. The next and final live Since You Asked is Thursday of this week with 3 different Prep Olympians, and Chad Konecki will be back in the seat of hosting as I have to be at our Board of Trustees retreat. Have a great rest of the day. Take care, everybody. Thanks again, Andrew. Thanks, John.
Bye.
Bye now.